Welcome to Security Today, another episode of Bid2Bank in the bank again. Today we got Jeff from BetterDaysTech on, one of also my good friends. Apparently I only get my good friends on here, at least for the first couple, you know what I'm saying? But we got Jeff on here today, and he's going to be running through Bid2Bank. If you don't know what it is, it's a podcast that we make sure to move from all the way through the project lifecycle. So from the bid and the marketing all the way to putting the money in the bank, and then we bring them the humbling question just to make sure no one's out there thinking they're the greatest, and also the bonus Q where we ask kind of for some takeaways on that. So these have been going really good. I appreciate all the love and support that people have been giving it, and I just want to keep doing it because I know that when I started in this game and I started running in my own van, man, I could have used something like this where guys were sitting here talking about just their process, just to take little nuggets, or, you know, as Dan Higdon from Ashford said, or Ashton Computer says that, you know, those peaches, because I said that once, you know, just get a couple of ripe peaches that you want. So, but yeah, that's what we want you. Yeah, that's what we want you to take away from here. Those little gold nuggets that you can implement into your own business. So we're just going to get started right here. Jeff, thanks so much for being on, man. You know I had to get you on early. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, man. It was a pleasure. I'm sorry it didn't work out the first couple weeks, but I'm glad we're doing this today. It's really an honor. Thank you.
No, not a problem. So tell us, man. Tell us about yourself first for the listeners, and then, I like I said, I like to ask about, you know, how you got into the game, how you got running where you're at now.
So I mean, you know, I think everyone's got a unique story on how they're in the game, and you know, I don't think mine is any more unique than somebody else's, but I love telling it. I grew up swinging a hammer. I got off the school bus. Grandfather waited for me at the school bus, gave me my hard hat, and we went off. He was a town building inspector, and we'd go check out jobs every day after school. It's where I learned all my swear words in Portuguese, and you know, he ran a successful contracting business that I just assumed I would take over, and you know, unfortunately, he got Alzheimer's while I was in middle school, and eventually passed while I was in high school. So, you know, I was young, wasn't ready to take over a successful contracting business for sure. Contracting business back in the day was nothing like it is now. You know, like the guy swinging the hammer owned the company, and, you know, the margins were thin, stuff like that. So, however, you know, I all through high school, I took some home building classes. I left school every day at noon to build a house. And I just really assumed I was going to be in construction. And my mom had other plans for me. She, you know, it was really important for her to be the only grandkid who went to college. So, you know, before I knew it, I was being shipped off to college, you know, 15 minutes up the road in Providence. And, you know, and so when you're young and impressionable and don't really want to do something anyway, you know, I went to college to be a history teacher because, you know, the coolest dude in my world was my high school history teacher at the time. And I said, all right, well, if I'm going to a college and, you know, I'm going to a college that's primarily for education majors, I might as well jump in. So I went to college as an education major. One of my gen ed classes was a computer information systems class, and I really loved it. So I remember like it was yesterday. I was in the same building as the tech classes. Like one of my education classes was in the building. I looked into my planner. I saw that my college the computer teacher had office hours in that building. I thought the coolest thing of college was you could get up and leave whenever you wanted. You didn't have to like raise your hand to go to the bathroom or anything. So I just got up and left, and I went into his office hours, and I said, look, I want to change my major to computer information systems, and the rest is history. I studied, you know, I concentrated in network design, stuff like that, and when I graduated, I took a job as a director of technology for a private school in the area, and then I moved on to a bigger school, maybe a half dozen years later. But I always had this Better Days technology on the side. It was always kind of like this passion that I had. And, during the pandemic, I realized life really is too short, and I made a go for it. So I quit the only industry I knew, which was technology education, and I'm doing what I do now. So I really feel like my construction background has really come full circle. I really try to focus on what I like to call construction technology or physical technology. So it's not just like the guy with the keyboard, we do a lot of what I call wires and pliers. So I try to focus on the things that a lot of tech guys in my area don't. We have a lot of tech guys who really follow the rule of, I don't climb higher than 6 feet. I don't lift more than 35 pounds. I've really kind of been able to make a name for myself as the tech guy who's not afraid to climb a ladder,
Right on, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you got into it and you're running it now. What's the Better Days? Where'd you grab that? Is there a story behind that?
That, I mean, my last name is Day. So, Better Days. And, the logo is even just unique. I just feel I put it out to one of those online logo contests. You put up like a reward, and you get to have people send you all their renditions of your logo, and it was a really fun process. And so that's where the logo came from. It was just kind of a play on my name, and the sunrise for a better day, and the rays of the logo are like little, it looks like a soldering board there. So it's cool. It's I don't know exactly where the name came from. I think it just kind of happened one day. I think of that sometimes, and then I think, is it too corny? I asked one of my friends this the other day, is it corny? When you hear it out loud, and you're signing contracts with companies, and they're like, oh, I'm having better days, and it's like, I sometimes wonder if it went from this little thing that I was doing on the side to now a very big part of my world, and I just wondered, is the name still got legs? But
nah, it's cool. Straight. It's straight, yeah. Man. I like it. I like
it.
Yeah. You get to show up and be like, hey, man, if Jeff is there, it's a better day.
That's right. Yeah, I get it all. Yeah. Everyone likes to have fun with it. So it's been a unique ride. And then, so when I decided to go off on my own, I reached out to the tech directors at surrounding schools and kind of just let them know, and then the floodgates open. I was just doing, camera installs for schools and helping out with doing other stuff for schools. So earlier this year, we launched a second division to the company. It's called Better Days EdTech, and myself and I grabbed a technology director from one of the schools that was one of the first people to call me when I went off on my own. And I said, hey, how would you like to be a part of this? So in July, he's joining the pirate ship, and we have a half dozen schools under contract that we're going to be handling all their IT needs. And it's cool. It's cool how, as much as I want to move away from tech ed, it's just there. And it's just a comfortable, familiar place for me. And I know it's Bid2Bank, so we're going to talk about this, but, one of the conversations I had with one of the prospective schools the other day, we wound up landing them, is we're just school guys. We don't know life any different. We've been going to school since kindergarten, and our mind is just, in June it slows down a little bit, in August it kind of ramps back up. She was very hyper-focused on, I need everything done by the last week in August. Do you know how important it is? And it's like, yes, I don't know life any differently. It's my mind, I'm in this 40-year cycle of just school ends in June, it begins in August. It's it's fun. You get 2 weeks off at Christmas. It's funny. I don't know life any differently.
Yeah, right on, man. Well, that's good to hear, man, and that's good to know, because that's exactly where I want to be with this podcast, is getting into guys who maybe are in a niche just like that. And just kind of seeing what you do. So let's get into some of the questions, man. First is, I always like to touch on the marketing and sales. So even before the bid, it's getting that business in there. And you kind of touched on that a little bit. But, give us a rundown on maybe some of the different types of marketing software or sales techniques that you've used during the life of not just your business, but if you've always been doing it on the side, how you
Yeah.
got that, and then which one do you enjoy the most?
Which one? What?
Which like sales technique, or how, which
Yeah.
marketing
Okay.
strategy do you like the
Yeah,
most?
because I certainly don't use any software, I marketing software. So I don't really, I will say, I know it sounds cliche, but like word of mouth is really all I do. I have I have begun to, so I have a lot. I have relationships with 3 or 4 electricians now who just don't want to do any low voltage stuff. So they'll bid a job and they don't want anything to do with, network design, installing cameras, installing Wi-Fi, but they're losing bids, they're losing jobs because they don't have a person like me on staff. So, I've been, again, because of my construction background and knowing the folks that I know, I was able to kind of build trust immediately and move in and start to do jobs. And, whether it's high-end residential jobs or, new commercial builds. And so I do a lot of work with electricians. So that, no marketing necessary there. The school stuff is really, again, just, your web of people. It's just always trying to treat people right, because you never know when it's going to come back to help you or haunt you if you treat them wrong. So, it's again, that golden rule, right? So, um, marketing wise, I mean, I've never advertised. I just have, the work trucks with the thing. I will say, not that it has probably led to any uh, revenue, but I'm a big proponent of just giving out your logo, giving out your like the shirt you have on now, like
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
anyone who's ever said hi to me has the opportunity to have something, with my logo on it. So I don't, it's funny. I don't have any tangible data. I guess it probably, as a business person, I should, but I'm more just like excited to have my logo out there in the universe. So I don't do it for a return on investment, but I do that. I do pump that out there a lot. Um, but yeah, I hope
Yeah.
I've answered the question. I don't have any marketing
Yeah, no.
strategies or plans. I just try to, just keep it natural and,
Yeah.
always have
That's
conversations with people. It's funny, like, my wife will talk about it all the time. Like I just am always in sales mode, and I don't mean to do it. I honestly don't. Like, I went to the mechanic the other day, and he had a Hike Vision camera system, and he owns some rental property across the street. I'm really on the hunt to have my own shop. I had a shop that didn't work out. We can get into it if it comes up later in your questions, but basically, he had some rental property across the street. I said, "Hey, do your cameras get across the street?" And he's like, "No, they don't." I have a quote from a guy since October. He was supposed to put cameras in across the street. He was supposed to connect them with some type of Wi-Fi. I don't know, and so I was like, damn, like I can't turn it off. I just was like, well, the reason why he probably hasn't called you back is Hike Vision is going through some problems and blah blah blah, and and then before I know it, he's asking for a quote for a whole new camera system. He doesn't want any Chinese stuff. I mean, you start
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about Chinese, and it's just, I couldn't. I honestly was asking how I could give him money. Like, I wanted to
Yeah.
rent one of his units, and I left the place with a job. So it's like, I feel like I get myself into that a lot, where I just through conversation, oh, I know somebody who needs that, and then before you know it, I'm getting a phone call from a friend of a friend. It
Yeah.
was funny. I had my first house call a couple weeks ago where there was no degree of separate. I did not know this person at all. Like, they literally found me on the internet.
Mm.
I got a little nervous. I gotta say, because like normally every job that I go to, there's at least they know someone who knew someone that I know, or so it was my very first. It was like funny because I mean I've been doing this since 2003. If you really think, even all the side work and everything. So for like 20 years, I never had like a cold call, complete stranger. I need your help.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It was weird.
That
I
yeah
mean, the
that
woman was very polite, very very nice. It was a great experience. I didn't get mugged, but
Yeah. No, that's funny because your number will get out there. So when that reminds me, and I know this is kind of off topic, but when I was running my own lock van, I had my number out there on Yelp or something like that, and I can't find it now. I searched my company on Google. I looked through the listings. I can't find it, but I guarantee you, once a month, someone will call me, and it's just a voicemail, and it's like, "Hey, yeah, I got an '84 Chevy that I need a
uh-huh.
key to,"
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. But hey, let me ask you this though, from a listener standpoint, you said you had a couple of electricians that wouldn't touch low volt. What was your approach to that electrician to become kind of their right hand man when they need LV done?
yeah. So again, I guess it kind of goes back to what I just said a few minutes ago. There's always that degree of separation. I'm doing a really good job, just like my network, of people, and like I don't know, maybe it sounds like I'm only selling to my friends, but you know what? Maybe I'm gaining more friends first, and then along the lines a job comes out of it or something. But to go back to your direct question, so like first off, I built my house with my own two bare hands, right? So I all the things that I was licensed to do or was able to get a relationship to do. Obviously, you can't wire your own house. You need a master electrician to do that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, went to high school with a kid who worked for a a big electrician in town. So I reached out to him and was like, "Hey, I'm building a house. I'd love if you guys could give me a bid on the house. By the way, I'm doing all my own low voltage stuff, so you can take that stuff off the bid." And then he's like, "Oh wow, you do that stuff? Yeah, yeah. It's kind of I'm looking forward to finally doing it on my own house." So, that happened, and I built this house in like 2007. So that was a long time ago. And throughout over the years, I have just done little things for that electrician here and there. But that friend is now a co-owner of the business. So, and I said this
Mm.
a couple weeks ago in one of our podcasts that you and Mick and I do, is that we're of an age right now where all of our friends are starting to have influential positions at their jobs that they have. So I kind of feel like we've all kind of elevated our status, and a lot of I grew up in this town. I only left to go to college, and even that was only in Providence, 15 minutes away. So I'm deep rooted here locally, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like as these friends grow into their roles and their jobs, they're remembering the people they grew up with. So I think when I think about the two electricians that I do the most work for right now, they're my age, and they know me from growing up. So and then you do a job for them, and that's the knowing them just gets you in the door. It doesn't keep you in the door, and that's the part that I
Sure.
try to talk to young people about. Is just because you know someone, or your dad knows someone, or you're friends with somebody, that only gets you in. Your work ethic is what keeps you there. So I feel
Mm.
like I've had the opportunity to get in based on relationships that I've had. But I think my quality of work hopefully is what kept me there, and that's what I've been able to do with the electrician. So again, it's just like that, knowing someone, or knowing someone who knew someone who introduces you to someone, and then before you know it, you're their low voltage guy.
Right on. So once you get that job, if it comes in, obviously you do a lot of like networking. So you're getting jobs from somebody who goes, "Hey, this person told me about you," or I was working with this guy and he had work done by you. So you get the job. Then what type of quoting software do you use first of all when you're doing your quotes?
Yeah. So I I migrated to QuickBooks this year, so I'm using QuickBooks for all my accounting stuff, and then I use it to build quotes as well. I like how
Okay.
it can roll the quote into an invoice. I like how it sends them a quote, and they can hit accept quote, which is as good as a signature, and then it goes from quote to invoice. So that's new to me. I
Nice.
just started that in January. Before that, I was very much a glorified pen and paper guy. I had you know, an Excel, just an Excel matrix that I would use that, looked like an invoice and was able to kind of keep me with the bookkeeping that I needed. But yeah, so I've changed it up to QuickBooks this year, and I use that for all my quoting needs.
So when you do that bid, what's kind of your philosophy or your approach on it? Do you use it to get in the door to get more work from some clients, or do you hit every bid, conservatively, just so that you're not getting, ousted on something like that? Because I know a lot of guys approach it differently.
Yeah. So I will say, having that soft landing spot of having the other division of the business, the education side, is very much, verse, chorus, verse is what I call it. It's just money in, money out, contracts, very, very, no materials, no anything. It's just like, those days you're getting paid from the neck up, is what I always say. So, as far as, having to be conservative and, as a self employed person, you think about that because you think about, providing for your family and making sure you're making enough money to meet payroll and stuff like that. I've kind of structured myself where I've really thought about this for a long time. I wanted to go off on my own. I was getting real close right before COVID. And, and then, I hit the brakes like as we started shutting down. Little did I know that's when I was my busiest.
Mm.
Technology obviously is what kept the world going during COVID. And,
Yeah.
people like you and I are no exception. We were in high demand. And in retrospect, I would have been probably much better off today if I went off on my own before COVID, because I just was saying no to a lot of jobs during COVID because I just simply didn't have the time. I was a full time tech director at a school. So, but I will say, having that other division, you can really kind of set a watch to your expenses and, taking a salary from there. So I feel like that allows me to bid jobs a little bit more aggressively because I know I have that other division to the company that is making sure that, my lifestyle is being supported. And again, that was by design. I didn't realize it would be as big as it was, or it'd take off as fast. But I did know that I wanted some type of, part-time job that would support my lifestyle in a consulting capacity. I never dreamed that it would lead to a whole nother division to the company, but I'm
Mm.
really glad it did.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. So when you get that bid and then someone accepts it, that is when you start to kind of move into that project management phase. During that project management life cycle, what would you say are the two most critical moments in completing a job? Like between the bid and the bank, do you use any tools or methods or software that assist in like those critical moments?
Yeah, so I guess maybe I want to go maybe before I can even shed some light on something that's going on right now that's before the example you just gave. So
Yeah.
I went out to a camera quote yesterday, really big plaza in our state, and they need all new cameras. Well, they need cameras. They don't have a network there. Um, he didn't really realize like what that would entail. Like I've been a part of new plaza construction where obviously, the architect puts in a wiring closet every either floor or every, 300 250ish feet or something. But this was like a brand new a new install to a building that's been around for 50 years. So there are no wiring closets. There are no places for network infrastructure to go. So I had to develop a plan on where to do that stuff. There's no data line for the plaza. I mean, every unit has their own data line, but the plaza, the owners of the plaza themselves, there's nothing. It's just store. So we really had to develop a closet. We had to take a unit that isn't in operation right now and turn that into home base, and they're going to lose some revenue out of it. So we had to grab one that was, no one could use it anyway. It was junk. It didn't have windows, stuff like that. But so that was yesterday, and then he has another unit that another property in Providence, a couple towns over, that he has a camera system from our internet service provider. They have discontinued that service, and this customer didn't know that. So whenever his contract runs out, he's not going to have cameras at that other location. So I was able to say, look, in addition to the plaza, let's talk about your office building in Providence, because I really think I'm going to be able to lump this together and get you a much better deal. Additionally, we need data service at the plaza. So I can probably get you out of your contract at the other location because you're going to need their services at the plaza location. So
Right.
Today I put some work into that. Now, this is not a customer of mine yet. I just went for the bid yesterday, but I felt it was really important, and I do this from time to time. So that's why I'm kind of happy to talk about it on your show here. Is I'll go the extra mile after I put in the bid and do stuff like this. So today I called my contact at the internet service provider, kind of negotiated a deal there if he wanted to get out of that other contract. I negotiated a deal with the camera vendor if he wants to go with putting both buildings together. And, so I know I was invited to bid on the plaza yesterday, but unbeknownst to him, he was going to have this problem that he didn't even realize he was going to have. So I'm trying to show him that, hey, I can be part of your solution to a problem that you didn't even realize he had. And again, he's not a customer of mine yet. I just met him yesterday. I don't know anybody who knows him, except for I got introduced. So again, it was just one degree of separation. I shouldn't have said I don't know anyone. I know one person who knew him, and they introduced me to him. So I kind of feel like, when we talk about Bid2Bank, that's the thing after bid is I'll give the bid. Actually, in this scenario, I haven't even given him a bid yet. I'm waiting for blueprints so I can give him a bid, but I wanted him to see that this is the Better Days difference. You go with us and you get we get the ball rolling immediately. Now, no money's changing hands, no decisions are being made, but I just felt like I could make a few calls on his behalf today and give him a lot more to think about other than my camera quote.
Yeah, for sure. So so my next question was in the customer experience realm, but you're kind of moving that way anyway. So I want to touch on it right now. No, you're good, man. It's all gravy. These things are meant to flex and flow, man. Just go where they go. But where do you think that during the life cycle of a project you feel that the customer's experience is the most important? Is it at that early on stage? Is it 6 months after the job's done? Where's the most important point?
I think for me it's at the beginning, and I treat those opportunities the same, whether it's a new education client or just a random restaurant that needs a new network and a couple of cameras thrown together or something like that. I feel, and I'm a big advocate of this, again, cliche, probably the third one I've used today, but you do not get a second chance for a first impression. And I really feel like that's important. I really try to, especially if it's a job that I really want, I go hard, and I try to show at the beginning that, we're a real deal operation. We may not be as big as some of our competitors, but that's by design, and you get the personal touch that you don't get. So we were able to take over 3 schools this year from a competitor, and that was the main thing. Is like they hated feeling like a number. Where to me they're family. I mean like corny, but they are people. And I got up and I spoke at one of the schools the other day. I said here is my personal cell phone number, and I'm giving this out to 60 complete strangers, and I'm really hoping we get invited to your faculty Christmas party. Like, I'm gonna show you that we're gonna make you feel like we're staff members. We're not just this outside consulting firm that's just gonna come in and fix stuff in the middle of the night. Like, we're a part of the fabric of the school. So and whether so on that's on the education side. On the regular Better Days side, it's the same approach. Like, at the beginning, you want to make that customer feel like that they're making the right decision, and then it's really heavy at the beginning to make sure that they still feel like they've made the decision, because the name of the show is Bid2Bank. You don't get paid in full until the end, so you want to, throughout the process, let them feel that they have made a good decision, and that they can really feel like their needs are going to be met, and then you obviously showcase that throughout the process. But for me, it's the beginning. It's the relationship building at the beginning, because like I said, I get in the door usually by knowing someone, but I stay in the door by being approachable and relatable and somebody that they feel like they can talk to.
What's a couple like takeaways that our listeners could take from that moment that you're talking about and maybe implement into their life, or their business as they go day to day, that would help that moment?
Sure. So, I mean, I feel like when you give advice like this, it sounds disingenuous, and I can't be more polar from that. It's got to feel genuine. That's the most important thing. Like, could you research the hell out of a person and find out, if they're Patriots fans, and does this guy like bourbon or what? I mean, yeah, you could do all that. It's just fake. You know what I mean? Like, go into it, be real. If you can throw in a couple of things, if you know something about, their son's football team, and like, hey, your son's football team went undefeated last year. That's amazing. Like, but don't make it feel like it's like a sales pitch. Like, only say it if it's genuine. Like, I can say something like that because I happen to know that. Like, I happen to follow that football team. I happen to be able to have a conversation that would back that up. The last thing you want to do is be like, hey, I heard your son's basketball team went undefeated last year. And then he starts asking you questions about basketball, and you don't know a thing about basketball. Like, you look like a clown, So it's like the last thing you want to do on a bidding process is look like a clown. I if we're getting t-shirts made up, maybe that's the one we get, because like, you just don't want to come at it. It's not a circus. This is real life. This is business, and you want the person to feel genuine. So to answer your question, anyone listening, how do they do it? Be genuine, be real, and make the person. I've always said I am not the best technician. Certainly in our technology group, I'm not the best technician around. I am the best people person around. I am the best person to talk technology with, and I may not know everything, but I know enough people that your question is going to get answered, and I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to pull people in if I need to. I will say this technology group has elevated that for me. I'm able to, reach out to you guys constantly. But that's always, even before technology, that was always my approach, is like, hey, I'll get you there. If I don't know the answer, it's coming. And I think that makes people feel valued.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like one thing also, because I agree as well that beginning time, that first time you step on site to do a site evaluation or site survey, or they called you up and you're like, hey, I'm driving by there tomorrow, let me pop in and see what you got. That first experience that you get is very vital. And one of the things that has helped me in those moments is that I've tried to take time on my own to take what I know knowledge-wise and put it into layman's terms, and not be afraid to share that with the customer when you're in that moment. And some of that has to do exactly with what you're saying, is being that genuine person, but also like not being afraid to tell them kind of what you're thinking as you're looking at their problem. But it's got to be something that they can process and understand. I've had several job opportunities that I won because I went into there and I'm like, yeah, you've got this, and that's really good. It's not the best. It's middle of the road, but it does do the job. If you could integrate it and link it with this, you could do this feature. And they're just like, oh, yeah, you know what you're talking about, And not only do you know what you're talking about, but you're actually looking to help me because you brought in another problem I had that I didn't even tell you about. And that's what it is on that genuine piece that you're talking about. Just like, level with them in their life, but also level with them in their company, and try to figure that out.
And I think like it's a fine line that we tread, right, on bashing someone else's work that you're because like clearly you've been invited to their place of business or their home because they know that they need your help, right? So you don't want to go there and be like, what the hell is this guy thinking? What did this guy do? I watched a funny stand-up thing the other day, one of these Instagram things, and it said, like, contractors can't wait to go to a person's house and bash the guy before them. And it's so true. I mean, every time, you get someone to come out to the house, the first thing they do is bash. Now, imagine if the person that you're talking to is the one that did the work and you start bashing the work, and they're like, well, actually, when I started my business, money was tight, so I did all the networking stuff myself, then you're just we're not allowed to swear.
A dick.
Yeah.
No, you're allowed. No, have you listened to the podcast? You're allowed to fucking swear on this. Yeah.
You're just an asshole, right? So, like, the last thing, when I talk about being genuine, that's one. But 1A is, do not bash somebody else's work, because you never know who did that work, It could have been that guy that you're talking to who was just starting his company, went to Home Depot, bought a box of Cat 5 CCA, didn't know the difference, but he's invited you to his business now because he knows he needs you, and he's outside of his element, and he can actually afford you now. So, and that's just the worst case scenario, is that the guy did the work and you're bashing it. It could be anything else. Like, you go and you bash another guy's work. The other thing you got to remember is someone paid for that work, and it was probably the person you're talking to. So now you're insulting them that they got ripped off. So it's a real policy of mine to never go into a job and start immediately bashing someone else's work. It's hard. I'm not going to say it's not hard. And sometimes you're competing against that person again. So you want to try to give a little zing there, but you got to do it tastefully.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the ways that I actually practiced at that layman's speech, to be able to talk technology to someone who doesn't have a clue what they're looking at, is I just told my mom everything. I would like tell her about what I was working on and this and that and the other. And you know how moms are. She's like, that's great, sweetie. My wife's like, shut up. I don't care, Yeah. But the being able to tell it to your mom is just one of those things. Or someone who might be like a mother figure or just older that maybe didn't grow up in the technology. But that's one of the ways that I practiced.
That's cute.
When it comes to that bank though, like, so when you get through that job and now you got the bank, do you have a general method? And this is really good coming from you because you kind of have these two divisions that work in a different way from your labor and your datacom to, your contracts and your IT support. So, is there a payment method that you use to collect after the job's complete?
Yeah, and I want to start by saying this: like, I'm not a Rockefeller by any means. I didn't grow up with generational wealth. I had a great upbringing. I was very fortunate. I had two great hardworking parents. Uh, got divorced when I was in sixth grade. And so I mean, I had my father had a couple of businesses, so I saw what it was like for businesses to grow, to open and subsequently close. My dad, one of my dad's businesses was a camcorder rental company, like this kind of
Yeah.
camcorder,
Yeah,
like
on the shoulder.
when they first came out. So like, you're taking a 30-year mortgage out on that building. That business ain't lasting 30 years. It's just funny. But with regards to like money, I tell people this all the time. You got to remember, I had a desk job for 20 years. I worked in a school. I had to be there for first bell. I had to be there for last bell. I wasn't allowed to go do stuff in the middle of the day. Like I was a soldier. Like I had to be there. Like I was very much confined. So um, I'm doing life backwards right now. Most people like work hard and do all the labor and then find a desk job at the end. I got to a place a handful of years ago where I was just straight up miserable, and I had great jobs. I was able to put a lot of money aside to make sure I made this leap and could comfortably do it. Again, I'm not, it's not like I'm got tons of money, but I'm comfortable. So when it's about working and making money and the bank part of this conversation, I just think about how happy I am right now and how much I enjoy what I'm doing right now, and like, climbing a ladder in December to go fix a camera in Rhode Island, where people are like, "Oh, I'm miserable. I can't. That sounds like the shittiest thing to do." Like, I'm like, no. Like the shittiest thing is like making sure you're somewhere at 10:30, and you better not have to take a leak at 10:30 because you got to be somewhere at 10:30. So um, that so to me, like the money part, the getting paid, the all this stuff. Anytime I get aggravated by that, I just remember, like, you're happy, believe it or not, right now. Like you're happy right now. You're doing meaningful work that's meaningful to you. So the collecting money, I could get into it. The QuickBooks, the Net 15, the working with different contractors to do different things, but and again, maybe I can say this so adamantly because I have the school division, and because those are contracts that are pretty much you could set a watch to, and they lead to a very comfortable lifestyle. So maybe that's where it stems from for me. But I will say, um, ultimately, I'm just really happy with the work that I'm doing, and getting paid for it is like, it just feels criminal sometimes. I'll be honest. Like I'm having so much fun. I'm thinking back to, like, getting off the bus with my grandfather and being tossed my hard hat and going off to job sites. Like I feel like I'm 7, 8, 9 years old again. So for me, it's just it's a nice change of pace after having a desk job for 2 decades and being able to kind of go out there and do what you love to do, and then and then get paid for it is just like, I'll get paid for it whenever they get around to paying me. Like that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, we work to make money, and it's important, and I'm not trying to take away from that, but I guess I just go about it with a whole different mindset where, like, I'm working and I'm happy. I'm happy with what I'm doing, and you can't put a price on that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I get that, and I feel like that's one of the things that is going to be the indication of if you're going to succeed in this industry or if you're going to you got three options. You fail and you get out of the industry. You mediocrely just cut by, and you know, we've all worked with them, especially if you've worked in this industry as a W-2. You work with a guy that's like, you know, 53 and he's just trying to get to the end, and
Yeah.
he, you know, slaps shit together and he doesn't care to teach you anything. Like, you're either that guy or you just wildly succeed at it. I say it all the time on the podcast that right now the trough is full. Like, you can go a block over and still get low volt business. You can go a block over and still get security business. So
Yeah.
like, and if you can find your purpose in it and your happiness in it, then yeah, it's true. Like, that's what's going to cause it to you get to a point where it doesn't really matter if I get paid. Like, it'll all come in. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing enough work that it's gonna roll all in.
Yeah.
But it's out there to get for sure.
Yeah,
I understand
I'm
that.
compensated in other ways. You know, like I see me coaching my son's ice hockey team as compensation in a very, you know, in a web, like, you know, I can spin it in that way where, like, that's payment to me. Like, being able to own my own business where I am able to do things that I want to do is a form of payment, you know. So I'm really happy that that's something that is not missing from my life, because there's so many dads who, you know, aren't at every game, and
Hmm.
you know, you can count on a hand how many times I haven't been at the arena when my son has been on the ice, and that's like learn to skate, you know, developmentally every, you know, like there's less than 5 times that I haven't been there, and that to me is so valuable. That's more valuable than having a you know, a 6-figure job, you know, bringing in, you know, $500,000 a year. Um, you miss a lot,
Yeah.
and you know, there are guys who are
Yeah.
able to do it. So, you know, there are plenty of guys who are able to make a ton of dough and be at all their kids' soccer games, and you know, that's great. I just know that um, I'm just happy that I get to do it. I don't. That's when you like just don't compare yourself to other people. I mean, I know we sometimes there's people who talk about how much money they make, and we jokingly compare ourselves to him, but it's not. It's just for fun. Like I could care less. It's because the thing, like you know, I've been offered jobs before at other schools, and you know, it's a lot more money, but it's not enough money that it's not going to change your world. You know, you're going to go on the same vacations, you're going to drive the same cars, you're not going to move, you're going to live in the same house. So why bother taking on more stress? You know, just just be in the moment, be there for your family. That's compensation, um,
Yeah.
in its truest
Definitely.
form.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's something that we connect on too, is just that fatherhood
Yeah,
and having that there. And if anything, man, like, I feel like this point in the podcast right here is speaking to the person that, you know, if you are out there and you're just grinding away, like, the trough is full enough that you can make a little less money and be a lot happier.
yeah,
It's
yeah. I mean,
like
look at my
it's
trough.
ready for you.
My
Yeah, it's
trough
ready
is
for you.
my trough is friends and family, and supporting their businesses. That's the other thing. Like, people, like, I've been part of webcasts and things where people talk about, like, oh, never go into business with a friend, never work for a friend, and it's like, I don't know, man. I've just never been torched by it, but my two best friends, I manage both of their businesses, and they've grown, and I've grown with them. You know, it got to a point where actually one of my best friends, who owns a huge business, was saying, "Look, man, like, we are so big that we kind of can't have you part time nights and weekends, like." And I was like, oh shit, like, okay, it's time, you know? And that's when, like, before the pandemic, when I was like, all right, man, like, now that was me letting my friend down by not being there enough, you know? It wasn't that I wasn't doing a good job. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of people who say never work for friends, but I don't know, man. I guess my core group of friends, we just have this like trust. Like they want me to be the person that manages their network. They trust me. I've never been torched by it. I know people have, and I get it, and I respect
Yeah,
that. But me
I have,
personally,
so I get
yeah,
it.
yeah, and yeah. So, but for me, the way I've positioned these relationships with my friends is that it's like, look, friends first, IT provider second, and if you're cool with that, I'm cool with it, and because
Yeah,
their friendship is too important to me. I know my way around a keyboard, so you need a guy who can do keyboard stuff. So it's like we need each other. You need me. I'm here to help. That's it. It's got to be
yeah.
clear though. I mean, it sounds like you could probably touch on maybe you would go about it differently. So I'm not gonna turn the tables around and start interviewing you, but I would love to know if you could take something from that experience and what would you have done differently.
Yeah, no. It was just, I was a lot of it. I was naive in the beginning, anyway. I was pretty early into the industry. I was like in my mid 20s. It was just
Yeah.
there was a lot of naivety there. Just life experience that I hadn't lived, especially as an entrepreneur running my own show. So
Hmm.
when I took a homie in, and he
No
was
kids yet.
he was, yeah, no kids yet, and he was
Yeah.
doing something that was kind of similar. It kind of ran the same vein, and we tried our hand at it, and he was just a little looser than I was. So that's all it was. It wasn't like a big burning in the end,
Yeah.
but I get what you're
Yeah.
saying. But let me get to our last two questions here, because
All right.
these are the questions that I like to ask the best. I'm sorry. So the first one is the humbling question of what's one area in this entire process of Bid2Bank that you feel that your company right now is soft on and you'd like to get better at?
Um, I'd say probably project management. I mean, you go into it, and the humbling part is probably what we just talked about, like not really being motivated by money. So, but I have guys who work for me who work to make money. So like I my primary goal after taking care of my family is to make sure that I always am thinking about them and making sure that they're taken care of. So I guess humbly, project management would be something that I could probably do a better job at, making sure our profit margins are there to make sure that we're able to take risks and just have more to give more.
Yeah,
Um,
right on.
but it's working.
Yeah,
Everybody's I don't have any disgruntlement across the bow here, so I don't I don't I don't. I wish I was more prepared for that question, and I know you talked about what we would talk about, so it's not your fault. I I got a bad feeling that like later on tonight I'm gonna be like, Bear, we got to make some edits because
yeah,
I got a
yeah.
whopper here. But
No, you're good. You're good.
yeah, no, I think just the whole thing is humbling, really. Just I mean, just being just always being uncomfortable is really kind of a blessing and a curse. You want to
Yeah,
try to you know be the best you can for your clients, but you can't know
yeah,
everything, and you know
for
it's
sure.
hard.
No, I get that. And one thing that my partner, my wife, she says all the time is like, you can't be in growth while you're also in comfort. And so
Yeah,
we've thought a lot on that. I know that some people are like, I don't believe that, but I think that that's where that stems from. Is just you have to take the risk. You have to be a little uncomfortable, and sometimes it doesn't pan out, man. It's a flip of the
yeah,
coin, but it you can't be in growth if you're truly going to want to do that. So let me get to
yeah.
the bonus question though.
Oh, okay.
Based on your experience moving a job from Bid2Bank, where I love this one. Where would you say the focus is most critical in the completion of that job? Like where's the focus the most critical from your marketing down to your bid, down to your project management, your customer experience, putting it in the bank?
Yeah. Yeah, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think it goes back to the beginning, like just the securing the job. To me,
Mm.
that's the most important part. It is making sure the customer feels like they're being heard, that they're getting a good deal, that they're contracting with the right person. That to me is far more important than my profit margin, than the bank part, all of that
Yeah.
part of like if this were like a line graph, like the money part is like way over here. Like I'm just so focused on this part. Like this part, again, I'm not a Rockefeller, but like I just don't care. I really like my word, my honor, my reputation. All of that is way more valuable to me than getting a new truck with shiny wheels. Like I much care. I much more care. And like I said, I grew up in a small town. I never left. So like people know me. They I don't want to be the, oh, that kid's trash. Like he
Mm.
came and installed a camera system at our house that never works. Like that's the last thing I want. Like that to me is, that would just be the worst thing. That would be worse than going broke to me. Honestly, is just not only like having that as my reputation, but again, you touched on it. I'm two boys' father right now. Like they're growing up in the same town I grew up in. And I hear about kids whose dads are talked about. Oh, that kid's father's a loser. Like that kid. I can't think of anything more devastating than one of my boys having to hear that their father is a clown. So
Mm.
like so Bid2Bank, like it's here. It's like way at the beginning, that relationship building, the letting the person know that they're in contract with the right person for the job that's going to get it done. Um, you know, with all the agreements that you came to, on time, on budget. Making sure the job gets done right. That to me, that's the most important part to me.
Yeah. I get it, man. Definitely.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I try,
Well,
man. I mean, I think
yeah.
it's hard. It's hard. Like we're tough, right? Like we're both of the same age. Like we grew up without the internet, and then the internet kind of happened, like while we were in our working years. And then this whole social media thing has created itself. That like I'm on the outskirts of it for sure. I jumped into Instagram, like just on a like I don't. It's not worth wasting your time on it, but it's changed my life. I wouldn't know you if I didn't jump onto
Yeah.
social media. But I will say, for the longest time, I was without it. I was the only person in my friend group that didn't have Facebook, Instagram. I was the last friend to get a cell phone. Like I wasn't into this connection. And like now it's just funny because like I think about it, and like you put your work out there on the internet and everyone's judging you, and I think, oh man, it's just such an ugly part of the human element that we're doing this to each other. And then I think about it, like I go to the grocery store and I buy a loaf of bread, and I don't have to say this loaf of bread was bought and Chris Halverson approves of how I earn this money. Like it's just you get paid, and you buy the things that you need, and it's like that's all that matters. Like when I get paid, that's the person whose approval I need. I don't need the internet's approval, and it's dangerous, right? Because we all talk to each other, and we all use each other for help on projects. But there's this underbelly that sometimes it's tough to avoid. And so when we talk about like what are the hardships to what we do, I would say that's it, because your network rack and my network rack may look totally different, but they get the same job done. And hopefully they're both done with professionalism. But there are network racks that we walk into that get the job done that look like a bag of spaghetti. So it's like
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard, and I can't imagine like when I think about my grandfather, he didn't grow up with having to worry about his work being critiqued by some guy in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a
No,
phenomenon.
I get that too, and that's one thing that I really want the podcast to be pushing. From a Security Today perspective, it's like we like to pick up these tricks and these trades that or these tips that make our work look better, and that
Yeah.
is a good heart is to be like, I want my work to be cleaner. And for the longest time when I was out there, slinging cans and stuff like that, I thought to myself, they're going to hire someone other than me at some point. I'm gonna die, so at some point someone's gonna walk in here and see this wire. They might be ripping it out, they might be just servicing it, but I want the next guy to walk in here and see this and go, that's good. This looks great,
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like respecting the other guy, because that's what you were talking at the beginning of this podcast, is that like when we see somebody else's work, when we see that rack of spaghetti, man, he could have been 3 days on the job, or he could have just lost his dog, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a whole ton of things that could have affected that piece of work. So there's definitely a place to look at work and say, that's not really up to, like, that kind of looks like trash. And there's definitely also a place to be like, my work doesn't look the greatest, but it's making it work right now, and it's 11 o'clock, and I gotta go home. So like,
Yeah.
there is a gray area for that. And I think that we just need to remember, when we're seeing other work, and when we're, seeing other guys put up the work that they're doing, there's a little bit of area to say it could be better, but there's not these leaps and bounds that guys are
Right.
like, oh, I do my cans like this, let me just tell you all that this is wrong,
Yeah.
because we're all out here on a journey.
Yeah, the arrogance is the part that I just can't stand. The like, let me show you guys how I see a lot of you guys doing this wrong. Let me show you the right way to do it. It's like, I hate that. Like, when you start your presentation belittling someone, it's just, you lose all of my respect. It's just like, it's hard to gain it back when you start a presentation like that. So, and there's a couple guys who are on Instagram, and it's just like, I just unfollow them, because it's like, it's just not the way I want to be going about my world. I'm all for jabbing. I'm all for, locker room antics. Obviously, I still play sports. I'm all about the locker room life, but there's a time and place, and you got to be real comfortable with someone before you can talk to them like that. Like, you got to like have a bond first. You got to have a real core friendship first before you can talk to someone like a jerk. So
Yeah.
so like, I don't know. I feel so bad for our kids sometimes, and like, the world that they're gonna grow up in, because at least you and I grew up in a place where there was that like core fundamental, like that friendship, those relationships. And like, now kids are just online. Like, you don't even, like, kids are getting catfished and shit. Like, we didn't have to worry about that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just, oh man, it's tough being a parent to that too. I know that's off topic here, but man, yeah, I think
sure.
people's social media persona really is important, and I wish people put value in it. I really do.
Yeah.
Because it's who you are, whether you're behind a keyboard or not. It's who you are, and if you're a businessman, it's the same. It's who you are, and then it's a reflection of your business. So it's even more important, especially if you're using that skill, that business, to provide for your family.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, I got it, man. I could talk to you for hours, man, but I really appreciate you being on the podcast, and yeah, we've kind of made it through that Bid2Bank. So just thanks for your time, man. Thanks for being here. I always want my interviewees to shout out where they can find you. So where can people find you if they're looking to ask you a question or maybe dig into something they heard on this podcast?
Yeah, I'm at BetterDaysTech on Instagram, and that's the only place you'll find me. Or I'll, I'm not a social media guy, but I'm here. I'll be at Tech Fest in a couple weeks. I'm I'm a big fan of the work we're doing with TKW and Technology Worldwide. I
Yeah.
want to try to encourage our community to grow in the right direction with the right people, and so I can be found there as well. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, Chris, I truly, I mean, you've been one of my longest friends through all this. I feel like I've known you a long time and really got to grow closer to you over the past couple of months. And your friendship means the world to me. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I sincerely mean it. It's such a treat to be able to talk about what we do and have the conversation go in all these directions and just have it come back to like that main root, which is just trying to put the best face out there that we can and do the best
Mm.
work that we can. And I
Yeah.
know that what makes our connection so strong is we start the day with the same approach.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Follow it and like and subscribe to this podcast. Share it out, especially this episode with Bid2Bank with Jeff from Better Days Tech. That's right, man. So get it out there. I appreciate you all listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, man.